Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Sunday night, I believe it is. Sunday night, May 21st, 2023, about 10:27 p.m. here along the West Coast in the state of California. I sometimes question my days out here because they all kind of run together recently. It seems like time's kind of advancing really quickly. So what do we got going on here? The latest earthquake shows a 1.6 earthquake somewhere on the globe. Looks like up in Alaska in the green flag. We did have a little bit of activity kicking off here off the coast of Northern California here earlier this evening, sparking up a 5 point, see what they settled with, a 5.5 earthquake. It was felt across portions of Northern California. Even some folks reported feeling some moderate shaking out there south of the Eureka area. I had a few conflicting reports there on the comments on my videos, far as folks feeling the strongness of it. Some reporting that it didn't quite feel as strong as a 5.5, and then some folks feeling it as a stronger than a 5-pointer, similar to like a 6-pointer. So, yeah, a little bit of conflicting reports there with this earthquake, but either way, looks like there was obviously a 5.5 kicking off here in an area just offshore Northern California. Aftershock forecast, according to the USGS here. According to the USGS forecast, there's a 1% chance of one or more aftershocks that are larger than magnitude 5, which can be damaging within the next week. So there's a slight chance that we'll see something larger, but this is just all standard default USGS CISN, Science for a Changing World, typical wording here. Do they really know what's going to happen? Absolutely not. Can they forecast what's going on? Absolutely not. So no one really knows if this is going to be it, or maybe we'll see a 9.0 tomorrow. And that will blast the 1% chance out of the water. So no one specifically knows what's going to happen out here. All we know is there was a 5.5 kicking off here. No swarming around the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. In fact, this is just shy, about 40 miles or so from the southern end of the Cascadia, right here on the Pacific Plate boundary, which is to the south, and the Gorda Plate, which is up here to the north. So a little bit of activity kicking up here. Let me see the momentum sensor here. This obviously looks like somewhat of a dipping fashion, but not quite right lateral. This is more so of a northwest to a southeast type of earthquake in this area, which would apply pressure north here, or to the east, I should say. With that type of setup, it would apply pressure over here further along the northern California area. So we'll watch this with that type of earthquake just kicking off there. All right, so what else do we have here? Actually, West Coast is kind of lighting up like crazy here. It has died down over the last 20 minutes or so, but we did see some activity ramping up here into the Canyon Dam area of Northern California, 2.4 and a 3.1. Now, this activity here is kind of a part of earthquake activity we've seen in a sequence of events here over the past, it's been the past 10 days or so. I pulled up the last 30 days because, well, there's no 10 days, so we have to see what's going on up here. But this increasing activity here that we've seen off the coast here in Northern California with the 5.5 appears to, and it's similar to what I just explained here, adding pressure here up against the North American Plate boundary. That includes North American Plate here and the Pacific Plate. So we've seen a little bit of activity ramping up here following that movement offshore of Northern California with these two specific earthquakes here. And that includes a 2.4 and a 3.1, very shallow earthquakes, but a much further south area, south of the Canyon Dam, up along the There's the Indian Valley Fault, and there's the Lake Almanor Fault that kind of extends through here. But it doesn't show it, but it does flow through the middle of the lake here. But either way, a little bit of newer activity kicking off here south of Lake Almanor, following that movement earlier this evening there. So that definitely applying some pressure out here along the North American plate. That includes Northern California. Also down south here, we're still seeing some elevated activity around the California-Nevada border, just on the northern edge here of the Death Valley Fault Zone. This area has been showing a relatively seismic activity increase here over the last couple days, with about 71 earthquakes or so within this area, including a 4.3 that struck just yesterday. So things are still kind of ramping up here. I did issue up on the live stream an earthquake watch due to this elevated earthquake activity. Do I think something's about ready to pop out here in Northern California? It's a very good probability, unless we see anything major pop off here to the west. It's been kind of bouncing back and forth here between the western Pacific plate and the eastern area here along the west coast. So we can kind of continue to watch that. Definitely some elevated activity across areas of the western United States. You know, we can call it California, we can call it Oregon, doesn't matter. This is all tectonically one plate here, the North American plate being affected here with the Pacific plate. Further down south here along the plate boundary, got one earthquake here along the San Jacinto Fault Zone near the Val Vista area, 0.8, 18 kilometers deep. The San Andreas Fault, sleeping for now. Let's let it sleep. Let's let her sleep, right? We don't want to wake up that sleeping giant, because this thing is pretty much, you can pretty much draw a red line here across the southern branch up here to about the Garlock Fault Zone that is pretty much wound up as tight as it can beat. So do we want to disturb that? Absolutely not, because we could see easily an 8.1 earthquake is what the geologists are claiming that could strike out here. So we do not need that out there in that zone. But for now, everything looks fairly minimal. Just some very small microquake activity. Let me check out the tremor map here tonight across the Cascadia subduction zone. We got 26 epicenters of tremor at the southern end here of the Cascadia. That could have something to do with what's going on here along the Gorda Plate. A lot of times we'll see tremor activity just due east of the earthquake activity that we may see, and that's it's a little north of the 5.5 that we've seen here off the coast of Northern California, but I think it does have a little part in what's going on out there in the Pacific along that plate boundary. All right, I just had a gnat fly into my mouth, just FYI. It's a year of the gnats. We had a lot of rainfall out here in Northern California over the winter, and of course thunderstorm activity that's been feeding some bugs out here. Normally in the mid-May, early June, we would have pretty much just mosquitoes, but we got gnats and all sorts of weird bugs out here. I even seen some golden, I think they're called the golden web spiders, golden weeb spiders or something like that. They're very big yellowish type of garden spiders. I've never seen them out here before, but somehow they're forming out here this year. So a little weird. I kind of pay attention to that stuff, you know, unusual bugs and whatnot. I don't mind them. Kind of cool, actually. Oklahoma, what's going out here north of Chickasha, take your pick. A little bit of activity out here around the Amber area. This movement has been somewhat elevated here over the past week or so, specifically within this zone near Dutton Road, east-west. Looks like 1250 Road. I'm sure there's no doubt some oil pumping operations out here. We did see some activity out here very close to these oil fields. There's a what looks like a little oil pumping operation out there, and also one down south here. It looks like a major one. But this area has been kind of popping here left and right outside the amber area, so kind of watch that. I don't know what's going on with these bugs tonight. It's just weird. They're kicking up out of the blue. Of course, bugs, right? Kind of foretell maybe some events. What's going on, right? There's no locusts out here, but there's just gnats. And then again, we are looking at 100% water usage out here in Northern California. So we're kicking up the rice fields once again. So the farmers are happy. They can buy their new trucks again this year because they have full water supply for their rice fields to supply to China. 4.1 earlier this evening, it looks like, up around the Puerto Rico Trench. You're still kind of watching this area. We haven't seen any major earthquake activity up here, and it's a major area for some potential damaging earthquakes. It's been relatively active in terms of light to moderate earthquake activity, but nothing major going on yet. We do have 4.1 from tonight coming in about 78 kilometers deep. Further down south into South America, Chile area, 4.1 into the Peru-Chile Trench at 129 kilometers deep. That's going to show up here on the USGS and the EMSC model here, along with a couple smaller quakes down dip and downstream here south of the area. Man, that globe, I'm telling you, this globe looks very cluttered tonight. And I'm pretty certain we're here at the 24-hour period. I don't want to bring it too far below that. But goodness, this looks very active here. So what's going on over here around the Myanmar area? Let's see. Got a 5-pointer, it looks like, occurring up around this area, Myanmar, north area. Just northeast of the India area, 5.0, 10 kilometers deep. Also some activity earlier this afternoon and morning time period, further south and up here around the China area. It looks as though some movement and momentum is trying to bust its way across this plate boundary here, following all the momentum that we've seen here around the Vanuatu area, which, by the way, looks, goodness, I literally just had a bug fly into my eye. So stand by for just a second here. I keep talking about bugs, and here they are. They just want to make a make a nuisance here. So over here, around the Vanuatu area, southward, it looks like we've lacked aftershock activity. So things are completely calmed down. Isn't that weird how we could get a tremendous amount of earthquake activity, and then all of a sudden that locks up, and then we see that momentum travel across the plate boundary here with what we're seeing here across Solomon Islands, where we've seen that 6.1 early this morning. Further activity ramping up here around New Guinea and also around the Indonesia area, the Banda Sea region, with a 5.2. So things just, they build up about as much as they can in terms of earthquake activity and pressure. And then once they're locked and tight, building up further pressure, so to speak, and then they kind of make their way around the bend, around that plate boundary. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. Solomon Islands was pretty much a dead call last night. I was kind of talking about how we should watch for further larger scale movement upstream from the Vanuatu area, and of course that got hit. 77 kilometers deep, but still this area is very active across this area. 5.2 Banda Sea up into the Philippine region, some deep movement going on in the East China Sea area. 5.5 at 189 kilometers deep there for that earthquake. Nothing major going on up here across the northwestern corner of the Pacific Plate, but I think look what's going on here between Tonga, Solomon Islands, of course the Loyalty Islands area that we've seen here, kind of missing all the large scale activity. But also down here along the Australian and the Antarctica area, the plate boundary here with a 5.4 movement with a 3.2 south of Australia. New Zealand is right here in the quiet zone. And that's a little concerning here, folks, with all this activity occurring around it. Large-scale movement taking place here with the general west-northwest plate movement here of the Pacific plate puts New Zealand in a danger zone in terms of some larger-scale earthquake activity. So this is kind of my watch zone here tonight, New Zealand. You're in there, and there's a lot of movement taking place around you guys. 5.4 down here kicking off earlier this evening, it looks like, or late afternoon. I'm still trying to see with a bug in my eyeball. Macquarie Island, a 5.4. About 2 o'clock this afternoon, it looks like. So remember, this whole plate, this plate movement here, west northward plate movement here, the Pacific plate, puts a lot of strain here across New Zealand, and we've seen tremendous deep activity up here in Tonga, tremendous surface activity up here around the bring up the last 7 days here, south of Vanuatu. Very minimal adjustment across this plate boundary here, so this is going to catch up. It has to catch up. I mean, it makes sense. The longer it doesn't catch up, then the larger the earthquake activity will be down there in New Zealand. Let me take a look here at the GeoNet servers for the area. Looks like the latest one was about 10 hours ago, 3.2, 3.5 according to yesterday time period there. 2 days ago, 4.1. The latest earthquake drums here across. Goodness, these bugs. What's going on with the bugs tonight? That is going to be South Island, New Zealand here. Which one was that? Let me see here across the area. Earthquakes. South Island's probably going to be well, there's let's see, 2.2, a couple smaller quakes, 3.3. Was it 3.7 8 hours ago? Maybe. At 8:46. Let me see here. What's going on? 8:46. Definitely some activity occurring down here across South Island, New Zealand area, possibly around that time period. It showed up pretty nicely there for sure. Aside from that single earthquake down there, South Island, it looks fairly quiet for now, folks. But definitely don't let your guard down around here, because you know this eventually has to move if you really think about it. All the large scale movement up north, down south around here, southwest of New Zealand. It's just it kind of makes sense where activity needs to take place here, and New Zealand is right in that key period. Did see some activity here off the coast of Australia, 3.2 coming in from the EMSC model. South coast of Australia, just well east southeast of Rockingham. These are just for references, but here's the interactive earthquake here, well off the coast. Looking at the last 7 days here, a little bit of activity off the southwestern coast, but this is the most recent one here in this area of Australia. So just be on guard, folks. Nothing to fear. Just got to make sure you're prepared out there across New Zealand. It's a major, obviously, you guys are living on a separation of a plate boundary here, and the Alpine Fault runs here across west side of South Island. And of course you got the major subduction zone up here, the Hikurangi subduction zone, and many other fault systems that live out here. In terms, this is actually a little bit more complex than the California area. And I think the hazard zone exists a little bit more for this area as well. I need me a fly swatter, I think, or a bug zapper, because they are not leaving me alone. And they're just, I don't know, there's a whole bunch out here tonight. Somehow they got in, either through the window or me opening up the door. I don't know. But there's a lot flying around my computer tonight. They're actually on the computer screen. They're like little bitty green bugs. All right, little earthquake here. Another one showing up here in the Nevada area with a 1.6. So watch the California region. I think California is underneath a little bit of stress out here, considering all the movement up north, activity occurring away from the plate boundary here in the Nevada area, and also into Northern California. I think we need to pay attention to what's going on here away from the plate boundary, which of course is the San Andreas Fault, right? So that is strained and stress. Pressure transfer occurring inland right now. In Hawaii, I don't know what's going on in Hawaii. It looks a little scattered brain out here right now with a 2.1. That's not really necessarily Pahala. This is right up on the top of the Mauna Loa area. And a whole bunch of earthquakes here around the Kilauea volcano. Let's see what's going on here across the hazard notification system here from the USGS in terms of the Kilauea update. Nothing going on yet as far as eruptive stage, but obviously the earthquake activity is ramping up. Looks like it anyway. No active lava, not yet. Summit tilt meters are showing gradual inflation. Obviously it's been going on that way for the past couple months. That includes magma underneath the surface intruding the areas below. So right now it is currently not erupting, but with eventually, I think here within I'm going to call probably within a month's time period, this probably will go back to eruptive status. Either Kilauea volcano, maybe Mauna Loa. We are seeing some earthquake activity up there around Mauna Loa as well. Speaking of Mauna Loa, let's see what we got going on here. Let's go back here. HVO. Well, Mauna Loa, there's really nothing going on here. We got monthly updates of Mauna Loa, so technically if something was going on, I guess we would see it, but it's not. The big island of Hawaii, as we zoom in here to the area, hold on a second here. That's the wrong island. I was wondering why it was so quiet here. Across Mauna Loa, seismograph stations here. This is at the northeastern flank here of Mauna Loa. And where'd you go? Right here? There we go. But also at the same time, this may pick up movement across Kilauea volcano and also Pahala on the southeastern edge of the Big Island. But yeah, definitely some earthquake activity ramping up there across the island here over the last 24 hours. Again, I'm going to call over probably about a month here. We'll see eruptive status return to the Kilauea volcano or Mauna Loa. That's just my guess. See how it plays out, right? All right, bugs, please leave me alone. Goodness, it's like it's a never-ending story. All right, so there's that movement working its way across the plate boundary here. The latest one at 5.2, kind of occurring up against the Java Trench, it looks like, the extreme eastern edge. So I expect here, with this momentum, look at the Philippines. Well, let's see here. Philippines area south, fairly quiet, but Philippines quiet. But this area that I'm speaking of, this is kind of getting clustered here of earthquake activity with that 5.2. It needs to make its way around this area. It looks like the momentum is trying to force itself here across the Java Trench, where we did see a little bit of activity up here in the Myanmar. But watch this region here across Sumatra. for some further activity. Of course, the 6.8 down there off the coast of South Africa, that was a pretty big earthquake early this morning. We did cover that earlier in the update this morning. Looks like they did have a 5.1 in the Prince Edward Islands area. Now, not to be confused with the Prince Edward Island up into the Canada region. A lot of folks were a little bit worried that a 6.8 occurred up in that area, but as you can see, and I kind of point this out even in my thumbnail and my update videos, that this was occurring down here in the Prince Edward Islands area of the southwest Indian Ridge. Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet, folks. Not a whole lot going on. Alaska activity, mostly smaller microquakes. Not a whole lot going on across the Aleutian Trench, but kind of keep an eye on that. Space weather activity still ramping up here. We got a G2 storm coming in here, surprisingly, out of the blue. And it seems like this is the second one here within the last couple days of surprising space weather activity. Nothing was really forecasted here. Didn't really get any major CMEs our direction here on Earth, the Earth-Sun plane. And far as the coronal hole goes, this was just facing us here over the last day or so, but that shouldn't come up that quickly. There's no way we would get the effects of that tonight. So a little surprising to see a little bit of activity kicking up here in the G2 class category. Again, unexpected. Let's see what they state here. Minor G1, G2, geomagnetic storm conditions observed due to enhanced solar wind environment. Yeah, but what has enhanced that? That's the question. What caused this? Halo CME observed in other news. But this was a massive event not facing Earth here recently. But far as the elevated activity goes, who knows? I mean, we've been seeing these periods here of unusual space weather activity and elevated geomagnetic storms here. A little odd. This was not called for. I mean, if you watch my previous updates, you'll see that that was not called for. But looks like elevated conditions remain throughout the night here with some auroras possible at the higher latitudes. Looks like polar regions remain unsettled. The aurora oval here active, and the subaurora see if I can spit that out, is unsettled. So that is the areas here in the northern tier states. So just kind of watch that and see how that plays out. All right, let's look at our sunspot regions here. Oh goodness, across the sun. And I'm keeping my eye on, and I think all of us should, is this 3311 here, right here. The latest imagery still shows it fairly complex here on the Earth-facing side of the sun. I do think this harbors a little potential for some X-flare probability. There, notice the if you look really closely here, the red, the blue, the green, all this intermixing here indicates some very close magnetic field lines, and that's where you get the strongest flares potentially. Looking at the UV filter right now, shows it fairly active, but not sparking, not flaring currently, as what we seen last night. We notice the brightness here in that sunspot region, indicating some C and M flare activity. But I just slapped myself in the face. There's a bug. Not for sure what's going on with the bugs, but it's invading my office space here. So we'll continue to watch this as we monitor these sunspots that are progressing here across the Earth-facing side of the sun. It's very dynamic. Trust me, it looks probable. Right now, it's taking a break here in the C flare category, but this is a sunspot region that has produced many M flares here over the past couple days. Right now, an overall threat, 99% chance for a C flare. Obviously, we're within that category. M flare at 75. X flare elevated at 35 or 30% chance. A little bit of a downgrade from this morning. It was up at about 35, but the probability and the possibility is obviously still there with 3311. Definitely keep an eye on that, and you can see it bright here within this filter. Definitely looks like it wants to produce something here very soon. Storm Prediction Center here for the remainder of the night. Maybe a little bit of thunderstorms up there into the Pacific Northwest and Idaho. Aside from that, no major severe weather threats in the forecast here, folks. So we'll continue to watch that and see how that plays out. Yellowstone National Park, I know we kind of forgot to check out. There's some of the earthquakes there from earlier, the 6.8 down into the Prince Edward Islands area, and also the Solomon Islands with a 6.1 occurring there. As far as Yellowstone activity goes, as far as local seismic movement goes, there's not a whole lot going on. Just those distant large earthquakes for now. So just be on guard, stay safe out there, folks, and I am going to leave up the earthquake watch here for California right now, just due to the elevated movement here across the northern edge, roughly about north of the Garlock Fault shear zone here, showing some pretty good seismic activity elevated away from the plate boundary. So we'll continue to watch that throughout the night here. Have a good night. And we'll definitely catch you guys back out here tomorrow sometime. Take care.